welcome everyone. This is Salma Ali from AUC TV. Today we're going to discuss how the Center for Student Wellbeing helps students who face harassment. Welcome with me, the Chief Clinical Counselor and the Consultant Psychiatrist, Dr. Ola Morsy.
Hello, how are you, Salma? I'm very pleased to be here today and to shed some light about our role in the CSW of how we help students in general and, of course, and harassment if they ever encounter it.
Dr. Ola, can you explain in a nutshell the mission of the Center for Student Wellbeing?
Okay, so the Center for Student Wellbeing is very concerned with helping students to develop resiliency, how to be resilient in terms of emotional well-being, cognitive well-being, and behavioral, how to deal with their stress, and how to develop social and self kind of growth through their academic experience. The center is also not just confined to the counseling part. We have the counseling center, which is the oldest part of our big center, but we also have two other missions, which is helping students who have any form of disability to reach their best academic goals and to have their accommodations that they are absolutely their kind of right to reach their maximum potential, and as well as reaching out for students who have any academic kind of difficulties or people who are at academic risk, definitely people on probation, students on probation, and even people who have some critical kind of GPA that might hinder their declaration or whatever situation, or sometimes maintaining a scholarship or whatever. We also have an outreach program through workshops, and right now it's more of webinars of how to maintain a healthy lifestyle in general. We're looking more of a holistic kind of well-being.
And how many students do you help annually?
Okay, so we have, I don't think I'm allowed to say figures, but we have a regular flow of students that most of the time can constitute to around 10% of the actual student body.
Mm-hmm. And what are the most common problems they complain about?
Maybe this is also might reveal some confidential issues, but I can tell you more that the counselors working in our counseling center are people who are certified and experienced in dealing with lots of psychological issues, most of a wide variety of complaints, of kind of problems. Starting with definitely in all of the most common in this generation worldwide is anxiety and depression, and our figures and our statistics cannot go out of that. If you find any kind of statistics anywhere, the most common age of starting any psychological complaints or having any psychological difficulties is usually at this age range of from 18 to 24. And actually this is, of course, our student body main age percentage. So it is very common definitely to have cases of anxiety, whatever it is, like panic attacks, like social anxiety. Definitely social anxiety can be a huge hurdle in performing academically, because definitely in classes we need participation, we need presentations, we need stuff like that. Depression is also, we definitely all of us can see and well treat cases of depression, and any other complaint. And we can have eating disorders, any kind of psychiatric problem. We are a group of multidisciplinary team consisting of counselors of different backgrounds, of different areas of subspecialization, and myself and some other psychiatrists come and visit our center on part-time basis, that we can support the students holistically, whatever their psychological problem is.
And when talking about harassment, how does the Center for Student Wellbeing help students who have experienced harassment?
Okay, so if we ever had a referral, for example, from a different office, like from Title IX or Dean of Students office or wherever, if we know that this case actually is a case who suffered from harassment, we give it priority. So we cannot ever put it in a schedule and wait, for example, for the the soonest possible slot. No, we cannot. We have to see it urgently. We have to free ourselves to manage such a case, because immediate help and immediate debriefing is one of the vital management skills in such a problem. So definitely they are seen as a priority. But sometimes, of course, the person can come without being referred, so they might not actually, when they are asking for the appointment, they might not say that a case is urgent or that they have been through this. So definitely they will take a regular appointment. So actually, if anybody has been through this, I would advise them, if they ever reach out to the Center for Student Wellbeing, they don't necessarily say that they have been through this, but they can say that I have an urgent case. I have to see someone urgently. I cannot wait for a regular appointment. Definitely, we support such a student by, of course, by this giving the immediate help. It's a very safe, confidential, trustworthy kind of environment. It's like a safe zone, you know, like when you go up to a place that is cozy with a person that understands and provides a setup that is different than any other setup, because this person is trained, this person understands, this person is a professional who will never have any judgmental kind of comments. Usually we do like what we call active listening, and active listening is not just listening, it's a procedure which the counselor is very well trained on proper active listening. And active listening definitely is usually with great empathy and validation of whatever the students come complaining of, whatever the topic, not necessarily just in harassment. But in harassment, this is really needed, because sometimes any client or the student in our case would come and tell us how they have listened to other comments that have really were attacking or non-validating enough or something. So it's totally different when they meet a person who really understands and provide this kind of safe zone to listen, to help, to debrief. And the more that the person feel trusting this therapist and opening up and not bottling things up and keeping it to themselves, the healing process will occur. They will start feeling that they have been active about it, that they weren't shutting up. They are speaking up with someone who's professional, and this person might really help them through the whole process of dealing with this kind of, we call it actually a traumatic experience. Lots of times it's a traumatic experience, and in dealing in this acute phase of the trauma, we might or usually guard against more chronic situations later on. There is difference between like acute stress reaction from being through something like this at the beginning. If it is well dealt with at the beginning, it might prevent later on having something like post-traumatic stress disorder,
And how
PTSD,
does
or
the center
more complicated
deal with
things.
this problem?
Hmm?
How does the
I'm
center
sorry?
how does the center deal with this problem?
I think the question is not actually very accurate here, because the center doesn't, for example, I have a case of whoever is coming complaining of sexual harassment. I cannot deal with the case as a case. I cannot, there is another total different entity, which is Title IX, who deals with the case in the terms of the whole thing, the hearing, the allegations, the whatever later on, the exact violations and the disciplinary action and all of this. I'm not related to all of this. My concern here is usually the victim or the person who has been harassed, okay? So supporting the person who has been harassed, choosing the best kind of therapy for this person, according, of course, there is different factors in how we deal with every person, and not every person who has been through harassment could be dealt with in the same way, because like people differ. There's personal variability regarding the personality, baseline attitudes and behavior and so on. So usually we deal with each person as we should, but of course in general we have to do all the basic kind of therapeutic supportive techniques. How we deal with things, actually, it is very important when we see someone who is who has been through some kind of harassment. It is, as I said before, it is a traumatic experience in which this person has been through a situation where they felt humiliated, they felt helpless, they felt angry, lots and lots and lots of extreme, it's a mixture of extremely negative emotions all at the same time, overwhelming, okay? So sometimes these people would need empowerment, more assertion. They feel subdued, they feel humiliated, and so on. So sometimes it's the role of the counselor when this person is ready, and we have to know when the person is ready, to start telling them, by the way, AUC has an office like Title IX coordinator and office, and right now it will be like even maybe bigger. Please go and seek help. Please, or think, we cannot actually dictate our client to do whatever. As a therapist or as a counselor or whatever, any mental health professional cannot ever dictate. We can never tell her or whoever, him, go and do this. We cannot do this, but we can always open options. So what do you think is the best way to deal with this? Would you like to remain silent about it? Would you like that this perpetrator would be left wild in the campus or wherever to do the same thing with other people? Or would you like, for example, to file a case? And maybe at the beginning, you would find resistance. You would find that the person is too still overwhelmed, that they cannot actually have this strength to go and file a case. But it's usually like, like you give a homework to write about it, write the pros and cons of, for example, filing a case and the pros and cons of remaining silent, for example, and let us discuss it next time. And accordingly, the person would start deciding for their own selves. And this is actually an act of empowerment. And when they start empowering, getting empowered and doing something about it and so on, this is actually the start of how they begin to heal, how the anger is not bottled up, like they don't feel subdued and passive and didn't do anything about it. So actually, any step further, even filing a case, would definitely start helping. And it's a step pro the healing process. But still, if the person is against it, we can never force them. But we have to give the options that will help them, because empowering the person, especially in a situation where they felt helpless and subdued and humiliated and powerless, starting to do something about it is actually a very therapeutic kind of action. So we usually try to hint it.
So your advice for students who pass through this experience is to speak up or seek help?
Definitely. Definitely. Seeking help, and filing a case usually brings, like more peace about this anger. Of course, not immediately, because still filing the case is very traumatizing and it will take time, but after a while, like, they feel I did something about it. I didn't leave this perpetrator wildly active in this absurd kind of actions.
There is anything an individual can do to avoid being harassed in the first place?
Absolutely none. Absolutely none. So in my experience, I'm an old lady with long career of in psychiatry, nearly 27 years now, maybe 28. So we have seen myself, I saw people from all walks of life with all, you name it, like there is never a stereotypical characteristic for someone who could be harassed. So please try as much as possible to conceptualize the idea that the problem is in the harasser. It's not in the victim. Anybody could be a victim, regardless. It can happen to absolutely anyone. This is a very important question.
And what about someone who's a harasser? Can you help him or her?
Okay, so the harasser actually never comes to us unless it's a sort of a manipulation or something. They're coming to try to, as we call it, malingering, trying to prove that they have a mental illness or something, usually after they have been caught or after they have been through something. Dealing with the harasser usually is not the mandate of the CSW. We are concerned about the victims, helping the victims and preventing further deterioration or further psychological problems to the victim. Sometimes we encounter harassers, usually in more minor kind of situations, if part of the disciplinary action was mandatory counseling. But like still, as I have seen before or understood from Title IX colleagues, the disciplinary action is usually ranging from mandatory counseling or community service or whatever until like suspension or expulsion or whatever. So this mandatory counseling is not usually common, because usually the disciplinary action is most of the time I think is more severe, so we don't encounter it often.
And what advice do you have for the harasser?
To the harasser? Yes. His action is taken accountable. I refuse 100% to try to attribute certain reasons for harassment to be under mental health issues or whatever, because these are the extremely rare situations. Most of the harassers are actually very well conscious. They're knowing what they actually do, and they are held accountable. So seek help, but usually they don't, unless they have been caught or the action was discovered or whatever.
if you can give students one piece of advice about their well-being and mental health, what would it be?
This is a lovely question. I can talk forever. So to make it short, actually, we have to talk about it from different perspectives. To maintain good mental health, we have to think about it in a form of like pillars, okay? So we have like the mental or the cognitive or how we think, and our emotional part, and our social part, and also the physical part. We are really trying to be conceptualizing any person from a holistic perspective. So definitely mentally, we have to try as much as possible to be cognitively aware of our way of thinking, how we tend to perceive the situations, to try to understand our schema of thinking, because everybody has a certain schema. Some people are, for example, always undermining their potential. Some people are very perfectionist, so everything for them is try to understand how you kind of think. Maybe writing the automatic thoughts in a journal and understanding oneself and how they tend to conceptualize whatever happens to them in life and so on. So mentally, be aware of how you think and try as much as possible. I know this might sound very cliche, but live the moment, you know, like seize the day and so on. Live the moment. Try as much as possible to focus on the present, because most of us ruminate and dwell about what I did in the past and how the future will be like and things like that. So usually we don't live at the moment. So try as much as possible. And actually meditation is a very good advice to start to live this current moment, the here and now feeling. This will help the person to be more aware of their thoughts and so on. Emotionally, we need to be aware of our emotions, how to address our feelings, not to bottle up emotions, and also how we perceive ourselves. You know, like part of the emotional intelligence is being self-aware, being how we understand ourselves, how we perceive ourselves, and how very important to love ourselves. Love ourselves. Treat yourself like your best friend. You can really accept what your best friend does. You can really be very compassionate. You can be really terrible with your own self. So at least treat yourself as a loved one. And socially, try as much as possible to connect. I love at AUC what we have regarding clubs and certain mainly the clubs and associations and so on. When someone is connecting socially and belonging to a certain organization, campaign, or whatever, they feel this kind of belonging is a very good thing for mental health. And last but not least, and it's never the least, the physical. Try as much as possible to remain active, play sports, or at least walk or do the basic kind of exercises. And definitely physical well-being. Usually, as we say, like the proper mind is in proper body and proper health. The good nutrition, eating healthy, drinking water. All the people are dehydrated and complaining of lots of stuff, and the basic drinking water is the basic kind of well-being, and they don't actually drink well. So also the physical well-being and being energetic and doing some activities improve the mood, because they actually help the brain secrete lots of very positive neurotransmitters, what we call endorphins and enkephalins and so on. And these are the well-being hormones, or more precise, neurotransmitters. So it's very important to keep physical. And our dean of students actually is who is our supervisor, and he loves anything related to physical well-being. So is always promoting wellness through physical well-being.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ola Morsy, the Chief Clinical Counselor and the Consultant Psychiatrist.
It was my pleasure, and I hope I shed some light about our role in our discussion, our role as CSW in the harassment.